Yo, Asy, dzisiaj odcinek specjalny, ze mną jest Hamid i Gabriel, tak? Robimy pierwsze spotkanie Ammańskiego Klubu Handlowo-Inwestycyjnego i jako, że metody daltonowskie znamy, dzisiejsze przygotowanie będzie po angielsku. So, let's start one by one. With the monthlies, right? We can see we one time framing higher on the monthly. That just shows us that we have a long-term uptrend and most of our positions should rather be long. So you can have some shorts. For example, if the yes, if the inventory gets too long or too short, we talked about the profile shapes, right? The P-shaped profile, right, or the B-shaped profile, like you saw down here, right? When there was a potential, there was a liquidation, but without new money selling. So these are the things we look at, and these are included in Jim Dalton's courses, right? We're going to come back to this in a moment, but let's focus on the preparation first. So that's on the monthly, we're one-time framing higher. On the weekly, we're also one-time framing higher. So this is S&P 500, that's Dow Jones Industrial Average, that's Nasdaq, and that's the German DAX. So we just restarted our computer, and we saw that on the monthly, it's a strong uptrend, but on the weekly, we had a short-term balance. You see, so this is the kind of the price action around it. So we have a consolidation, a balance, and this is a volume profile. So it's how much money, how many contracts were actually traded at each specific level. So this is called a high volume node. So usually in an uptrend, we want to get longs around the bottom edges of that high volume node. When people are relatively cheap compared to most recent price action in a way.
When you say contracts from, we're talking about
futures contracts, future contracts from CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Yeah. So CFDs are a derivative product. They're a kind of synthetic something on top of it, and we don't take data from them. We trade CFDs, but we don't take data from them. We take data from real people with real money on the market, which is here, right? So pozdrawiam w ogóle Asy, tak? Yo. Taki akurat odcinek sobie robimy, pozdrawiamy z Jordanii. And on the daily, we saw we had a short-term balance. So you see, this is 1 day, 2 days, second, third day. So we're within the daily range. So in 30 minutes, 5:30. The cash market, this new one is going to open. So it depends where it opens. This is an overnight market. I'm going to show people here. So this is the cash market here, cash market, as we explained, and this is an overnight market. So when the cash market closes in the US, it has deeper liquidity. So the bigger money, the bigger players, they can enter and exit their positions easily. Overnight, there's much less volume. See how much volume is being traded here. This little, let's say, pink, that's volume. So this is how much volume there is in the overnight session. There's less volume on the overnight. We can add exact figures to it, we will. But this stream, we're actually sharing this data for people who don't have such software or they can't afford it, so we shared it on our server. So if somebody wants to actually see this screen streamed, they can see it on the service. If somebody's at work, they want to see it on their phone, they can actually from the service see what's happening, how is my position doing, and then we also stream this data, so with participation. So for example, that's the German DAX today. Czyli tutaj mieliśmy na przykład niemieckiego DAXa, and you see the from here more or less the general participation is up. So like it seems that it shows that the general market is being bought up. So this is just to confirm the strength of the move, or should we hold the position, or should we just be careful because the broad market is not participating. Także pozdrawiam wszystkich dążących z nami do mistrzostwa w daltonowskiej sztuce gry aukcyjnej oraz katarska misja, tak? To są pierwsze kroki, dlatego budować track rekordy i działamy. We are here on the daily chart again, and okay, so we have an idea: monthly up, weekly, let's say up, or the rules, that there is something called a balanced trading guidelines. You will learn this in the foundation and application of micro profile. So we go with every breakout out of balance. So we kind of go in this direction, or if it fails, like here, you see we had something called look below and fail. We go reverse and we target the other end of balance, because the market usually stays in kind of, we'll take the stops, we'll kind of take out the weakest hands, they have to, they will take them out of the market, gain liquidity, and just kind of rebalance again. And we can see that's a volume point of control. So maybe we could be targeting it, but that's for later. But since we are on the daily chart, we see what's happening. We're trying to break out of balance. We're in the long uptrend. But to get more specific information, we can zoom in and we can go to profiles. So this is TPO, like this is market profile, and we can see that same uptrend here, but in more detail. So it gives us more information. We talked about statistics, about the distribution curves. That's that. So we just had data. We just had CPE inflation data that came flat, 0.2%. So no too much change in inflation. So the Fed, the big money knows, okay, it's safe to go. So after the news, we had this drop. So this is a reference point.
And do you rely on historical data?
Of course, and current data as well. This is called MGI. What we do is called MGI, market generated information. So instead of listening to the news and the people on the television, we look at the market and see what the real people with real money are doing. So we had this spike down on the news, and this is a reference point. So depending how we're going to open, if before US session open in 30 minutes, we can hold that move or open a bit higher, this is generally good for the session, especially in the first region, because that means that, somebody bought the market, the move held. So this is going to be one of our first key reference points here, this low around the news. So that's the S&P. See, that's Dow Jones. You see how much it went up? After the news, just the spike like this. So this is actually an important point. If we open in 30 minutes above this, and we're going to hold that move, that's potentially good, and we might be actually seeing change. Change is when we break out of the previous day's range. So you see the daily candle here. It's very small. Like I'll show it to people here. See this daily candle that we see here. Mm-hmm. This is yesterday. This is the day before. This is one day. Today, this is today, Friday, January 24th. This is Thursday, 25th. And so then that's an equivalent of what we have here.
And the red and green
here, that's so
indicates like this is a loss or a gain?
No, that's this is kind of basic. That's the open on the left. Mm-hmm. That's the close, and that's the extreme and extreme. So if, for example, here they opened here, they went up, they went down, and they closed here. Here they opened here, they went down, they went up, and they closed here. Yesterday they went opened here, went down, went up, and closed here. And we're waiting for the current day.
And we rely on the Japanese candles?
Yeah, well, partly. We use a lot of things, but the Japanese candles are just a way of, let's say, presenting data. That's what we just showed, But we rely primarily on the TPO candles, TPO chart. So this is kind of similar. This is also these 2 days, but in a different form. It just gives us more information, more in-depth look of the psychology of people, or statistics. We talked about shapes of these profiles. Distribution curves. If you have a double distribution here, like on the DAX, you see we had one distribution here, all these TPOs that are divided by this single print here. You see this single print? Mm-hmm. So that gives us a double distribution. So that means we have acceptance on the higher side. So it's actually, but also if you notice, we have a P-shaped profile. You see. This whole thing, it looks like letter P as such. It's not. So that's indication. It's the reverse of the B-shaped profile we just talked about. Yes. So that's actually a normal distribution. So the B-shaped profile, it's usually indication of long liquidation. So market got too long, suddenly it dropped, but it didn't go any lower. So there's no new money selling. And most people were confused. If they only follow price, they say, okay, the price is dropping, I want to go, and they're going to get short in the hole. So they get short at bad prices, We instead see it's a liquidation, so we go against it. So we can buy the market. So that's actually what I'm practicing recently, just buying liquidations, because they happen very often. So it's a very interesting art, Dalton says it's an art, not a science. But to be specific, since we kind of zoomed in and preparing, okay, we see that we had this data, we in an uptrend. We had news, market liked the news, so and they're holding that move. But so if for shorts, if you were to liquidate and go lower, this is the first key reference point that we need to beat. If we opened, let's say, in half an hour below this point, it's usually bad for the market because of the news that we had in the data, But because it's opening higher and it's holding that, we'll see. We still have 30 minutes to the open. Then it could be different. So that gives us potential tone or an indication that this session can actually be good, So for general, we'll see what happens today later, But it favors. It's all about thinking in terms of odds. We don't have any guarantees here, but short-term money trades for precise, specific levels. Long-term money doesn't care. They just go, they buy this because they can't, They cannot wait for anybody. And we can from the open, we monitor confidence, tempo, how quickly the market is going, what shapes, if you have a double distribution or you're getting a P-shaped profile or what, that's prone to liquidation. And this is what we're going to do with Jim Dalton on tomorrow, for example. It's going to be an episode during the Winter Intensive. Czyli tak, ktokolwiek dołącza do intensiva z nami, no to wiadomo, +1. So whoever wants to join our intensive, they can just type in +1 and the chip, so we can share the cost of the intensive. Tylko piszecie +1, dołączacie do nas. Jutro możecie być na odcinku z Jimem pod tytułem Monitorowanie za kontynuacją, żeby pozwolić zyskom rosnąć, oraz monitorowanie za kontynuacją, gdy ryzyko zwiększa się znacząco. So, as I just said, just translated to Polish, how to run your profits so you can make more money, or when you run your profits, when to be careful and just take your money off the table. Very important skill. It's an art in itself, for sure. A tutaj nie pokazaliśmy, I gotta keep bouncing between, czyli mówiliśmy o tym, tak? Czyli właśnie tutaj o tym spotkaniu i na serwerze +1 tutaj, w tej sekcji, tak? Zrzutka. Lecimy dalej z profilami. So in terms of profiles again, okay, so we're open. Let's say if we open now, we're not open now, so we still have an hour to go. If we opened above the previous daily high, then so it's, let's see, above it, this is change. And when there is change in the market, it leads to big opportunities. So and if it did open like this, it would be called a gap. So if the gap happens, for example, it's not here now, then the gap trading guidelines apply. So we go within the direction of every gap that it hasn't been closed relatively quickly. So if the markets try to correct it, but it doesn't close the gap, it doesn't go to the daily high, and it kind of hangs there, that's an opportunity for us to actually get long, at least in the short term, to go in that direction, because a gap is a form of excess. And excess could indicate change. Excess, balance, and value are three most important concepts in Jim Dalton work. So this gap is a form of excess. We do not have a gap. For now, we are opening. So, okay, we have a good reaction. We're staying below the kind of spike of the data, but we're opening within the previous day's range. Okay, we're opening at the top of, let's say, the overnight session. So that's kind of indicates some strength, but we're still within the daily range. If we were opening in the middle of it, and a moment ago we were here in the middle, right? So that indicates rotation. So you hold your horses, you don't trade early in the session, because that it indicates a chop. You go up, down, it's easy. In this phase, a lot of people lose a lot of money. So you got to be very careful. We allow the markets to show their hands. We play cards. We see the flop, we see the river, and it's okay. But the good thing is that if you don't like the river, you can take the money out of the market. And cards, you cannot do it. So it's a little card analogy here. But we look at overnight inventory. And this arrow is a settled price, or the last traded price the day before. And from that, we measure value. Value is, let's say, 70% of the daily range. So this blue thing. And value on the S&P is actually, see, the price is an advertising mechanism. Time regulates opportunities, and volume confirms success or failure of a certain auction. So in this case, we see, okay, the market is going up, but what is value doing? Value, in this case, you see that from the 2 days before and yesterday, it's actually overlapping to lower. You see, it's actually a little bit, this is the value from Bristol, that's overlapping to lower here. So careful, we gotta be careful, because we're in the short-term uptrend, but the market is came into short-term balance. So, okay, we gotta be careful for potential corrections, because if the value is building higher, like before, you're good. But higher, you're good. You keep on going with value, you keep on building your position with the trend, and you're laughing, But if we've got this short-term balance here, you gotta be careful. So in this case, the balanced trading guidelines apply, not the gap trading guidelines. And the balanced trading guidelines are as follows. We go with the breakout of any balance. For example, if we took this 2-day, let's say 2 days as a short-term balance, we go with the breakout of every balance in this direction, or we fade if it's unsuccessful, if you don't get the tempo, if you don't get confidence on the breakout, and we kind of get acceptance. So the price accepts within the balance, we actually go against it. So we go the other way, targeting the bottom of the range or here, or something that's called the point of control, which is like where most time is spent. And point of control, you're going to learn in the course, or like my wiemy, tak, co to znaczy. I'm explaining. So it's actually the fairest price that market has been traded. It's where the most most time has been spent. So for example, here, most of these kind of brackets here are here, and this little line is a point of control, and it acts like a magnet. If there was more of them, then the more prominent the point of control is, the stronger it is, and it will simply attract price. So if the price gets out of there, so the most fair price is here. It was going to attract the price like a magnet, so that's what it does. It kind of it wants because people want a fair price, because the purpose of the market is actually to distribute and allow the continuous two-way auction process, right? You know the auction, right? In art auction, you've seen the example, yeah? So the price gets bid up,
Yeah.
but here it's a two-way. It can also go down in a way. So it's a two-way, a continuous two-way auction market process. So knowing all that, we can tell that, okay, we've got the news, we've got the spike on the news, we've got trend that's up, we've got a short-term balance on the daily, so monthly trend up, weekly trend up, daily balance, right? And the uptrend. So, and the market very rarely goes from, let's say, the bull phase, up phase to down phase. It often does something like this. So up, across, so you got to be very careful here, because what we see here is on the S&P, value overlapping to lower. On Dow Jones, value overlapping to lower. On the Nasdaq, also value overlapping to lower. And the Nasdaq, you see, is actually very low here. As an investor, it's actually, see, this is actually stronger, this is stronger, and that's the weakest of the basket. So if you want to do any shorts, we should hand the Nasdaq. If you want to get any longs, probably Dow Jones or S&P. So then if you want to, if in the two-way auction process, we know which market is, let's say, do we beat up the weakest kid? We beat up the Nasdaq, But in the strongest kid, we stay away from it, or we want to be on his team for him to beat up others, So here we can see that in all these markets we're opening within the range of the previous day. So that's more than likely indicates rotation, but we have to be careful because of this balance and the value that's building lower. So it's Friday, we had a great week, tak? Piątek, mieliśmy dobry dzień, także tutaj nie ma nic na siłę. Tak wygląda przygotowanie tutaj u nas i przenosimy się na Reźniczka. So there's another student of Jim Dalton, very famous trader called Peter Reźniczek. We learn from him as well. So we subscribe to his service so he can actually share his knowledge with us, right? So we listen to him every day, see what he has to say, his pointers. He has something called Peter's Pre-Market Perspective. Today is Friday, January 26th, right? And okay, this is paid, right? So we pay for it. So we're not going to pirate it on YouTube, right? We're not going to go like crazy. So we can, także nie będziemy tutaj piratować na YouTubie Reźniczka. Jak najbardziej polecamy subskrypcję i przenosimy się do nas na serwer, żeby posłuchać do tego, co Peter ma dla nas do powiedzenia, tak? Także tutaj odpalamy, tak? Zaraz zobaczymy, co tam jest. I widzimy się w kolejnych odcinkach, a my przenosimy się do Landmark Hotel, tak? Jedynego hotelu 5-gwiazdkowego w jordańskich rękach, tak? Z nami był Hamid oraz Gabriel, operator. Tak jest. Także jako, że jest piątek, tygodnia koniec i początek, widzimy się w kolejnych spotkaniach. A jutro spotkanie z Daltonem. Kto dołącza na serwerze, dawaliśmy info wcześniej jak, tak? Ninja Trader. Powodzenia, asy.